Okay, we're going to be taking a look at my latest Gettysburg purchase, A Most Fearful Sacrifice, done by Herman Lukeman and published by Flying Pig Games, The 3 Days of Gettysburg. Now I'm going to try to make this video a bit different than the ones that are offered online right now. There's quite a few done. I think there's about 16 or so, and they're all very well done. Some of them are playthroughs, some of them are unboxing, and they're done by more professional video people than myself, like Moe's Gaming Table, Ardwolf's Lair, that kind of thing. So I'm going to show you in this video my path to this game. Why did I buy it? So it'll be a little bit different, and I'll try to show why I like this game. Now, I've been doing a little survey of Gettysburg games published on a list made by Board Game Geek, and there's about 50 Gettysburg games that have been published since 1958. Of those, I think there's about 39 that cover the whole battle. I didn't want to include games like Devil's Den or Little Round Top that covered only a portion of the field. Now there's Devil's Den that was published by Avalon Hill, and Little Round Top that was done by 3W. Now I'm often asked what my favorite Gettysburg game is, and as I've explained before, that's almost an impossible question to answer because it depends what you're looking for, what scale. But of those 39 games over the years, I've owned 29 of them, so I'm no stranger to Gettysburg games, that's for sure. A couple of my favorites that covered the whole battle were this one, Gettysburg, Lee's Greatest Gamble. That appeared in Command Magazine. And I think for a one-map game covering the whole battle, it's still one of the best. Another favorite of mine was the intermediate level Gettysburg, also done by Avalon Hill. It also had an advanced game that was almost unplayable, but the intermediate game was very well done indeed. Of course, I did have the old 1958 version of Gettysburg, still a classic, but hopelessly dated by today's standards. And I had the 1964 version, similar artwork. Avalon Hill also did 125th anniversary edition. I thought that was okay, but it's very much an introductory game and a little too simple for my liking. And of course I had the very classic Terrible Swift Sword, which changed the whole gaming industry, one of the few monster games. And I keep these more for sentimental reasons. I also got Rick Barber's own game, Summer Storm. I bought it mainly for Rick Barber's reputation as a map maker. His Gettysburg maps are absolutely superb. And of course, Rick Barber's maps are featured in A Most Fearful Sacrifice, and they are truly a beauty to behold because we now have them in a larger format, large hexes, and mounted to boot. Now, when I do videos on Gettysburg, I often get suggestions from people or questions to ask me whether I've played, the 3 Days of Gettysburg, or have I tried Last Chance for Victory. I have owned those games, and they were great simulations, especially Last Chance for Victory. I think that was probably the last word in Gettysburg simulation. But they were so huge, it would take a week to play them, and I just didn't have that kind of time. So, though I had them, eventually in time I got rid of them, some of them even unpunched. Now, A Most Fearful Sacrifice has evolved from a system which they call the blind sword system. And there was various games in that series. Longstreet's Attack, Stonewall's Sword, and others. They were a system in evolution. And the final evolution of that was The Devil's to Pay, which I did own, by the way. I bought it because it's Gettysburg, and it covered the whole first day, and it did feature Rick Barber's maps. I actually didn't end up keeping it, though. There was just something about the blind sword system that didn't quite gel with me, so I didn't keep it. That was the last Gettysburg game that I did purchase. So when A Most Fearful Sacrifice came out, I didn't jump at it, and I began looking at the videos on it, the reviews, read, downloaded the rules, and I came to believe that yes, I should own this game because it looks darn good. Now, I won't go through the trials and tribulations of how I had to purchase this game. I'm a resident of Canada, and man, it was not easy to buy this game because they didn't ship to the States. So I actually had to get my copy from France, of all places. So this game, mint condition, has crossed the Atlantic twice just to get to my place. Another oddity of my path to this game was I actually was offered a playtest copy, 2 years ago, I think. But I had to decline because at the time I couldn't really give the game the attention it deserved. And I didn't feel right accepting an advanced copy when I couldn't contribute anything. Because at that time I was quite busy with my own War for America game, so I was all tied up time-wise. So anyway, let's get to the chase. I now have the game. What do I think of it? Well, let's show you what I really like about the game. Now, nearly all the reviewers have mentioned that this is a physically big game. And I mean even the size of the box. There's the Gettysburg 88 version, which already had a very non-standard large box. And you can see A Most Fearful Sacrifice is actually even bigger. It's longer, but it is certainly much thicker. Now, for those of you, like myself, who like to really organize their order of battle in trays, well, I'm afraid you're going to have to forget that idea. There's no way you're going to be able to use trays with A Most Fearful Sacrifice. I've got one of the maps in the box, and the other is deployed, and we'll get to that in a moment. But since the maps are mounted, they take up nearly 3/4 of the space of the box. And the only way you're going to be able to get your counters even passively efficiently sorted is by using baggies, which I've got all there, over there, and labeled. So that's something you're going to have to live with. And I can live with it. Put them in bags, mark them as cores. You'll have no trouble. So it's a physically big game, and I mean heavy. This game is the heaviest game I've got in my collection. I think the second one is Civil War by GMT. It's physically heavy too, with mounted boards. But this one is a beast, and the quality is everywhere. Now, I won't spend too much time on the counters, except to show you that they are physically big. The other videos have shown you the counters, so I won't spend too much time on them. But these are the counters from the game For the People by Mark Herman and GMT. And you can see these are the standard half-inch counters. And I think, I haven't measured them exactly, but I think they could be 5/8. But they are physically big, which is great on the eyes. Because they are big, they have not had to go to the NATO symbols. They've been able to go to a very good graphic of little soldiers and stuff. I don't think I can get that in focus. Anyway, that's Cutler's Brigade. The critical information is large, easy to read, and the counters are thick. Thick, which is just great. So counters, I rate these 10 out of 10. Okay, the rule book. Well, the rule book, in short, is a delight to read. It's 32 pages. A good portion of that is the index and profusely illustrated, with lots of illustrations of play, and a very good index too. I've read this thing 3 times, and it was a delight to read. I was up at a cottage at the time reading it and just enjoying it, just drooling, wondering I could actually, set up the game and start moving counters. I really enjoyed the rule book. Well done. Are there questions? Yes, I've seen lots of questions on Board Game Geek. Does that mean the game is not complete? Negative. I don't agree at all. I find a lot of the questions, they're in the rules. You just got to be patient. This is not an easy game to learn, but if you're patient with it, most of the questions are answered. I saw one in particular, to me, it's just sort of common sense. Guys, use common sense. I think it had to do with, maybe I can show you here. Yeah, had something to do with the railway cut here. One fellow was asking, well, if you end your turn here on the railway cut, which hex are you in? Well, guy, whatever hex you want. I mean, no counters end their turn like that on a hex side. They end in one hex or the other. And lo and behold, that's how Herman answered the question. So I think if you're patient with the rules, just go slow and learn the game. Also follow the comprehensive example of play. That's what I'm doing. I've set that up, and I'm playing that over and over and over until I'm tired of playing it, and then I'll get it all, I guess. The scenario book, again, very nice. I had no problem with the setup, none at all. Errata, I don't think there's much errata on this. One thing I really did like was the way the Confederate setup is shown. For the, they show you little wee mini maps and stuff to help set up the game. The player aids are fine. I've seen a lot of complaints. At first they said, oh my God, the font's too small, I can't read it. Well, you know, guys, I'm 71 years old. I have to use glasses. And I didn't have any trouble at all reading these charts. So I don't know what all the hoopla is all about. But anyway, on Board Game Geek, someone graciously did some new charts for us in a larger font if you want, and you can print those out. So, I don't know. Some people's complaints just mystify me sometimes. Okay, the cards. You get cards, and I saw somebody complaining about that, and again, I'm mystified by the complaint. It had to do with the border on the cards or something. Anyway, the cards are fine. It's sort of a card-driven hex grid game, sort of, and this is why I like it. And it's got a real magic to it. Now, the cards, when you draw them, are kind of like a chit pull system. But someone may point out to me, well, wait a minute, you said, you know, there was things about Devils to Pay you didn't like. Yeah, you're right. It's a chit pull system. I don't really care for chit pull systems for battle games. Armies just don't move that way. Corps don't activate by chance. They're under orders. And chit pull, I find, is not particularly good for battle games, especially Gettysburg. But wait a minute, you say. What's the difference? You've got cards. Don't they act like chits? Yes, they do. But Herman has gone a step further. And this is why I really like the game and the system. For example, you've got these Union setup displays where you set up the corps and their divisions. And when you draw the corps card, then you can activate these divisions in the order that you prioritize. So you have a say in how these divisions are activated. Now, most people, most sensible thing on day one is to get Wadsworth first because he comes up first. So you'd put him in the division priority 1 slot, maybe Robinson in the second, and Doubleday in the third. There's a good chance that Wadsworth will be activated when you activate him. Pretty good chance for Robinson, and less so for Doubleday. So it's there's a gradation to the system. And even when you roll for moving a division, you roll 1 die, and this is what brigades or artillery is activated in the corps. So it's a gradated system. It isn't all or nothing. And that's one of the things I really like about this game. Now, for the control freaks out there, you may not like this game because you're not totally in control. And neither was Meade nor Lee. So in this game, you're kind of in the role of Meade or Lee. You can arrange the orders and hope that the men obey to your satisfaction. Now, before I owned the game, I got a little nervous when one of the reviewers said that there's no command counters in this game. And I go, oh my God, no Lee or Meade counter, no corps leaders, no division leaders, no brigade leaders. No, there are no leader counters in the game. And that really worried me. But lo and behold, Herman's system is just perfect. It actually eliminates like 110 counters. Now, when you really think about it, nearly every Gettysburg game that has been printed since 1958 had leader counters in it. Even the 58 version had leader counters. And the leader counters didn't do anything. They were 0-8s and they did nothing. Now, in time, leaders were used in Gettysburg games, and fairly successfully. But this game does not have leader counters. The leaders are really inside the divisions themselves. A word here is in order about Rick Barber's maps. Now, anybody who has bought any of Rick's games know that his maps are hand done. I got to meet Rick back in 2015, and I got to go down into his den where he works on the map with his light table and everything. All of Rick's maps are hand drawn. They're not computerized. And Summer Storm had excellent maps. Devils to Pay had excellent maps. And from time to time, since Rick lived near the battlefield, he was able to revise certain terrain features and stuff. But this game, with the large hexes, Rick's map really, really shines. I mean, it just looks beautiful. And individual historic sites are put on there, like Kunz Brickyard, Pennsylvania College, and Blocker's Knoll. And one might say, well, hey, other Gettysburg maps have got those features too. Yeah, they do. They do. But Rick's interpretation of the terrain is so well done. And occasionally he's put little wee height numbers on to just sort of, at the back of your mind, remind you of the height. So this hex is higher than that one. They're just beautiful maps. They really, really shine. Now, one of my biggest concerns in purchasing this game was the physical size that everybody's mentioned. Now, I've got an IKEA table here where that's the standard size, and at the end I've put the flyleaf up. But the IKEA table is long and skinny, and some of Rick's maps are wide. Now, there are 2 maps in the game, and since I'm fooling around with the comprehensive example of play, I've only got the north map up and I've turned it sideways. But I've already experimented with it. I can turn Rick's map 90 degrees, and because it's mounted, it will be supported by the IKEA table, and I can get the little round top portion onto my table. But make no mistake, this game does take a lot of space. Now, for those of you who are for limited space, you could put your Confederate command displays on the side. And like I mentioned before, you're pretty well going to have to go to baggies to sort the counters. So beware, this is a physically large game. However, the designer has done us a great service, which I did not see in games like 3 Days at Gettysburg and Last Chance for Victory. Yeah, they had scenarios too, but what really bothered me about those games was even the smallest scenarios, you had to have the whole darn map out, and I just didn't have the space to set it up. This one is different. So you can play out the entire first day of Gettysburg with just the north map. They've been constructed better with scenarios in mind, and there are 13 scenarios in the game. So there's plenty for you to explore. You can fight out the entire first day of Gettysburg. You can see Cemetery Hill, Benner's Hill. All the space that matters is on that one board. Thank God for it. Now, if you want to fight out Little Round Top and Devil's Den, you've got the southern portion will do the same thing. And if you want to fight out Culp's Hill, you can use the north map again. So don't worry if you buy it. I think you'll end up playing it. I know for me, I traditionally have not been able to play the large games, and that's where this game fits in. And it's sort of unusual because though it is a large game, because of the scenarios, I'm going to put it in that middle scale, too large. It's not Terrible Swift Sword or Last Chance for Victory, because this is not a regimental battery game. It's brigade level. But one of the few times for a designer to tackle the project, he's got the brigade frontages correct. Now, where a lot of previous Gettysburg games fell down a bit on the brigade level was their depiction of brigade sizes. Now, I've got Archer out here, but the example I'm using really would be Pettigrew. Pettigrew is a large brigade, I think something like 1,200 men. And yes, I'm showing Cutler, but I'm referring here to Zook's brigade, which was very small. I think it had like 450 men. So Pettigrew's brigade was twice the size of Zook. And of course, that brigade should have a larger frontage than Zook. And many games, they made no difference. That's where they fell down a little bit on the scale. A couple of games tackled that and corrected it. That was the advanced game of Gettysburg 77. But that was a totally unwieldy game to play. But at least they recognized that the size of the brigade made a difference. The only other game I can think of was Rick Barber's own Summer Storm. Rick acknowledged that the size of the brigade makes a difference, and he put that system into Summer Storm. And by the way, A Most Fearful Sacrifice follows Summer Storm's lead. So we owe a lot to Rick Barber for the evolution of this system. When I come to think of it, I think, yeah, the Brigade series, the gamers did a Brigade series, and they did account for large brigades and small, but I couldn't stand the way they did it. I really hated it. They put a counter here, and then I think, I don't have an example, but they put a little arrow counter here to show that the thing was an extended line. So you had these awkward brigades with little arrow counters beside it. I don't like that very much. And that's handled in this game by having counters numbering depending on the size of the brigade. So for example, Cutler here consists of 2 units. So that's a brigade, 2 units. Some of the other brigades have 3. Some brigades only have 1. So this final problem of brigade frontage has been solved by this game. Now checking my notes here, I've got here in Rick Barber's Summer Storm, Pettigrew consisted of 4 counters, and Zook consisted of 1 counter. Now in A Most Fearful Sacrifice, Pettigrew accounts for 3 counters, and Zook is 1 counter. So you can see the derivation. I think Herman would be the first to admit that he probably followed Rick Barber's lead in the way he composed his order of battle. Now my last word here will be on the combat results table and how it works. And this is a game changer for me. It's one of the things I really like about it. Because I'm not familiar with the blind sword system that much, veterans tell me that it has evolved from that and it is much simpler. And that's okay by me, because when things get super complicated, I lose interest. But this has got a beautiful balance. Now, where every game of the Civil War I've ever played, you roll a die, look up the result. It's either defender eliminated, attacker retreat. Some games have rout results, some games have disrupted results, etc., etc. So what's different about this game? Well, one, you're rolling 2 dice, double-sided dice, which gives you an effect, 2 letters usually. Then you go to another table to find out how that affects cohesion. And within that table, there's multiple results. So you don't have just a you're dead, I'm dead, or you're disrupted, I'm routed. You get, in some cases, even a choice of what result you want. For example, this one here, shaken or skedaddle. So it's your turn. You've just got this result against you. You can decide, oh boy, I'll take the shaken result, man, because I've got to hold this ground. So you flip the guy to his shaken side, or rather mark him with a shaken marker, pardon me, and you hold the ground. Or you just might want to get out, like let's say Devon or Gamble trying to take on Pettigrew. So you skedaddle 1 or 2 squares. So it's got a wonderful series of combat results. And all that depends on cohesion, how good the unit is. And there's a myriad of factors in here. And yet it's very easy to look up. The combat results table is colored. I found no problem with it. And if you're bothered by the small font, just print out a larger size. So that's my last word on the combat results. I mean, I could talk about this game for a long time, but I'm sure the video would be kind of boring, and I don't want that to be. Maybe it's boring already. Anyway, that's my conclusion. My final word on it is, for me, this is probably one of the best Gettysburg games I've bought. And it's probably one I will play. Most likely scenarios. I doubt very much if I'll ever take on the entire battle. It's just too big. Now, inevitably, people will ask me then, well, what is your favorite Gettysburg game? And as I say again, it's a very difficult question to answer. But right now, my two favorite Gettysburg games, on the ones that can be played 2 hours or less, are still the good old intermediate level Gettysburg over there by Avalon Hill, and the one I just put away, Lee's Greatest Gamble, which is in that Command magazine. I think that was one of the best Gettysburg games. But that's it for A Most Fearful Sacrifice. If you're hedging about getting the game and you're not sure, I don't think you'll be disappointed with this purchase. You get a lot of bang for your buck. There's a lot of pieces in this game, but it's playable. So, in one sentence, I guess, it's one of the best playable of the large Gettysburg games. Thank you for watching.